Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And obviously, debate, 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 debate. Subject matter, of course, we throw in some other things. But actually, I'm going to start with something that missed during our prep, and that is the anniversary of 9/11. A poll that 48% of people polled, Rasmussen poll believe that people have forgotten about it. So let's just kick off with that. Any thoughts? I I think my biggest takeaway is how the blunders after the attack, uh, basically playing into Al Qaeda's hands, um, going into needless wars, spending trillions. I wouldn't doubt it if it was 5 trillion. So and also the surveillance state that blew up after the attack. So fundamentally changed America. I didn't think it had to. Your thoughts,
Um,
Dr. Lopkin?
I think there were some fundamental changes that were needed. Um, in particular, the fact that we had government agencies that were fighting with each other rather than working together, which is how the attack got through. You know,
100%
we
agree.
had no communication between agencies, and now we've got some. We've still got agency turf battles, and there's still too much internal politics. But that did need to change. Um, I keep going back, and I'm sure I've said this before on the podcast, but I was in New York. I lived in New York on September 11th. In fact, I was a political consultant. September 11th was the day of the primary.
Hmm.
Yeah, I remember it all too well, but I think more importantly than the events of September 11th, which were horrific to say the least, I think we need to focus more on September 12th. Because September 12th, all over this country, and especially we felt it in New York, there was a sense of unity that I don't think America had experienced since VJ Day.
Yeah, or Pearl Harbor. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yes,
And
I think that's true.
We've become increasingly. Actually, how do you like this? We came together, and then because of how things unfolded, we've never been more apart.
yeah, I mean, the split in this country since then has been extreme, to put it mildly. And we need to understand that we may not agree with each other all the time. We don't have to agree with each other all of the time. But it's time that we started treating people civilly and understand that, okay, yes, I don't agree with you, but, to, to pull the old quote, I may not agree with what you say, but I will fight with my life your right to say it. And unfortunately, we've lost that, especially over the last 4 years when we've seen crackdowns on freedom of speech.
Yep, and I think that was one of the outcomes of 9/11. My least favorite president, or at least in the top bottom five, is LBJ. Although he gets a free pass from the intelligentsia, he's a piece of shit, horrible president, the one that really started America's decline. And right in that bottom five is George W. Bush, who squandered trillions and also squandered the goodwill of America at that time. So,
Well, I mean,
yeah, that is
realistically, if you have to look at, the five worst presidents in American history, we've had three of them in the last four administrations: George W., Obama, and Biden. And it's time that we reverse this. We need to come together.
well, we need to have the brains to elect good people. Forget about coming together. Yes, we need to do that. But, who's the morons that thought Joe Biden was capable? Even back then, he was kind of completely blown out. It shows the dumbing down of America. And if Kamala gets in, then it's, what do you call it? Game over. But speaking of that, Before the debate, Nate Silver Biden gave Trump a 66% chance of winning and like an 80 or something like that chance of winning Pennsylvania, which is really amazing. The debate, there's some poll from Newsmax that's claimed that the after poll that Trump won, but obviously who
No,
knows?
that's yeah,
That's
that
BS.
that's this
That's complete
distinct
BS.
yeah, that's distinctly
Daily
a
Express poll. That's
yeah,
like the Jeff Sherman
it's,
Incorporated poll.
yeah, no, it was
Yeah.
very clear that Kamala won the debate. Um, to be fair, the bar was set incredibly low for her. She didn't cackle. She didn't start laughing uncontrollably. But by the same token, I watched in the first half hour, almost every statement she said was an abject falsehood. So, they didn't fact check her on anything. And
Okay,
so,
let's talk about that because well, hold on. Let's talk about that because there was an editorial. I don't recall. Doesn't really make a difference. Who said who's the biggest loser in all of this? And this issue is a female said ABC, and I agree with it. What the f was going? That was like something right out of the Soviet Politburo. The hell is that
yeah,
crap?
ABC could have taken lessons from CNN and chose not to.
Well, they
And
learned a good lesson from Russia, didn't they?
it was absolutely ridiculous what they let her get away with. I mean, just, off the top of my head, she started going on again about Project 2025. Now, not only does Trump not have anything to do with Project 2025, not only has he not endorsed Project 2025, but Project 2025 was put together by the Heritage Foundation. Again, an organization Trump has nothing to do with. But Trump made so many comments to the detriment of Project 2025 that the Heritage Foundation actually fired the person responsible for putting it together.
Yes, it was total irresponsibility. Um, basically, in Trump's behalf, that he was debating not only Harris but he was debating ABC. Um, that ABC makes is right up there with MSNBC. Um, obviously, a subsidiary of Disney. Um, in a real world, both of those shitheads should be fired. They're not journalists; they're operatives.
No, I'm actually well, I'm incredibly disappointed in David Muir. I I have a tendency to hold him to a higher standard because he was a television radio major at Ithaca College, as I was a television radio major at Ithaca College, although several years before him. And I know the courses he had to take, and I know the professors he had to take it with. And all I could think when he was doing this was, my God, your documentary research professor is so ashamed of you at this moment.
Yeah, well, again, it's basically it's Trump derangement, and one supersedes the other, and that is
Well,
your
I
your
think it's
uncontrolled desire to dismantle Trump throws everything else out the window.
I
And he
think it's
wanted to be
more
a
than
hero of liberalism, and he succeeded.
I think it's more than just Trump derangement syndrome. I think that's the underlying factor. But I think a big part of it is literally ignorance of how things work. And as an example, Kamala came out talking about abortion, and she said Trump is going to put in a national abortion ban if he is elected, and she is going to put in permanently allowing abortions across the country. Now, if you're completely, pro-life or completely pro-choice, you hear this and you go, oh, okay, this is the plan. But neither one of them is going to happen because, first of all, there are not enough swing Senate seats up for either party to get to 60 votes. And an abortion bill is not going to get out of committee in the Senate without 60 votes. That is simply Senate procedure. Second of all, the Supreme Court said point blank, this is an issue for the states. So let's say Trump did decide he's going to ban all abortions across the country. California is going to sue because that is a violation of their state rights. And if it has to go all the way to the Supreme Court, based on their own precedent, the Supreme Court is going to say, yes, California is right. You can't do that.
Okay, the bigger issue for the debate, though, is why wasn't that fact checked?
Right. The fact of the matter is,
that's the biggest.
They don't have moderators there that understand how this works.
I think it's a little naive. I think it was done on purpose, and it was basically their job was to get Trump. I'm sure people like George Stephanopoulos, who was barred from the debate, had a role in how they were going to operate. There's no question.
I'm sure he did. He's the chief political analyst at
there
ABC. So
they answer to him. So he was behind the curtain.
Right, they don't answer to him, but this would have fallen under his purview. So yes, I'm sure he had a lot to do with this.
Very good. And now, what do you think of? There's David Schoen. He's a Democrat, but he's really good. He basically said that this will not move the needle. However, betting odds are now swaying a little bit towards Ms. Harris. Your thoughts?
Betting odds swayed slightly, but not enough. Before the debate, the betting odds said point blank that Harris was going to win the debate and Trump was going to win the election. And the betting odds have not swung so far that it's going to cost Trump the election. And Democratic pollsters have said this is a major problem because, yes, they're shoring up their base, which Biden was unable to do. But their base does not get them the electoral votes. And according to all of the data that the Democratic pollsters have been gathering, even if Kamala manages to win the popular vote, she is still losing in the Electoral College. And that's what matters. I mean, the Electoral College is what determines the presidency.
Yeah, but some of those electoral colleges, like North Carolina, was razor thin. Did the debate do enough to push that over?
I don't think the debate had any effect on any of the Electoral College states. I don't think
Can I throw a theory out at you?
One sec. I don't think it swung enough people in either direction to make a difference in how a state goes. All right, go ahead.
Sorry. How do you like this conspiracy theory for your analysis? I tell people that the seeds of defeat are often sowed in victory. How do you like that one? And could it be that maybe sometimes, like the old adage, be careful what you wish for? Could this actually hurt Ms. Harris because of maybe it making her a little too cocky, less cautious? Maybe she'll take more interviews? Your thoughts, Dr. Lopkin?
That is possible. I don't think she's going to take more interviews. She knows she's not good at it. Her staff knows she's not good at it. Although there are Democrats, actually, Gavin Newsom, yesterday before the debate, came out and said that Harris needs to do more interviews. Now, if that could be him trying to torpedo her campaign so he can run in 4 years, but
yep.
There is pressure for her to do that. And that is a very strong possibility on both sides. And you've seen this in the comments from both Trump and Harris in speeches. They have both said and cautioned their supporters that they cannot get cocky. This is going to be a very close race. And in fact, for quite a while, Trump has been saying we have to we have to act like we are still the underdog. We have to keep in mind that it's not going to be enough to win. We have to make this too big to rig.
Yes, and the only caution I would say is, you know, the debate, will it have an effect on a little bit of the enthusiasm? One other thought I'm thinking about, Dr. Lopkin, is you talk about the base. You think it might actually help Trump's base because people have had enough of the crap of him getting, you know what, effed. Like you see a one-sided, basically,
I
circus.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I think it's going to energize Trump's base, but it's not going to change anybody's mind. The people who are already voting for Trump have had it with this. This is going to energize them, but I don't think it's going to flip anybody that was on the fence. Although both CNN and MSNBC did focus groups after the debate. And both of them had people in this focus group saying, no, Harris did better than I expected, but my pocketbook is still too light. I was better off 4 years ago. I'm sticking with Trump.
Very good. Very insightful. Does inflation, the rate of inflationary growth going down to now 2.5, 3-year low in terms of the growth of inflation, what effect, if any, will that have on the election? And while you're saying that, there's obviously some more growing speculation of a coming recession. A lot there, but you're the guy to handle it.
Yes, I don't think the inflation rate itself is going to affect things much, even though the rate of inflation going up is now at a 3-year low. It's still cumulative. So, it's on top of all of the inflation that we've seen over the past 3 years. So people are still struggling every time they go to the grocery, every time they go to the gas pump. The only way the inflation rate would really swing somebody is it would swing people towards Trump if it suddenly shot up again. It would swing people towards Harris if it suddenly went negative. Now, I don't think either one of those is likely. I think it's
Very
most
unlikely,
likely
yes.
it's going to stay about where it is, up a little, down a little, but not moving much. What I think is going to change people's mind is what happens as a result of the inflation rate. There were a number of people coming out today on Wall Street concerned about the markets because they're worried that the Fed will not cut interest rates enough now that inflation has slowed. There's a lot of talk saying that the Fed waited too long to lower the interest rates, and now instead of the soft landing they're trying to hit, we may end up in a recession. And in fact, there are some people that came out predicting that we'll have a recession in October. Now, from a strictly technical standpoint, I don't think it's possible for recession to hit in October. We could see the start of recession fears in October, but I don't think we can actually see a recession at this point until after the election.
Fears are very powerful,
Yes.
however, and you look at weakened job growth, increased layoffs. I believe things are already, if you will, in process.
Yeah, we saw last week a lot of very negative economic news. And there's other things that are sort of bubbling below the surface. uh, productivity numbers in the US have finally started to rise. The US worker is more productive now. Well, if you dig into these numbers, especially the timing, you'll see that the increase in production comes almost lockstep with the shrinking of the job market. As there are fewer open jobs and more companies considering layoffs, productivity is going up. Why? Because for the first time in 3 years, people are actually worried they could be fired for not doing their jobs.
Absolutely 100% correct. And also, obviously, you have to do the same with less, and that obviously increases the per unit
Yes.
productivity. So, yes. Um, on this, getting back to the subject of the debates, conspiracy theory, but if it was true, I think that would be unbelievable. Miss Harris's earrings.
Yes, this is something I've been looking into after seeing news of this. I have not been able to get verification. So let's start off with that this is still at this point a rumor. But there are photos surfacing that were a close up of Kamala Harris from the debate where you could very clearly see the earrings she would wear that she was wearing last night. And the photo is circulating next to a photo of an advertisement showing that these earrings are actually Bluetooth enabled earphones. So that she was able, allegedly, to have somebody talking in her ear against the debate rules.
Well, that would certainly that would have a much more detrimental effect, in my opinion, than Trump losing the debate, because it would further exasperate, how they like that, people's view that she can't think for herself and has no brain. Both
Yeah,
are correct observations, by the way.
it does give credibility to the idea that yes, she's not capable of doing the job. It also fits into behavior we've seen from her before, going back to COVID and even before that. And we've said this about numerous people, the rules for thee, but not for me.
Without any question. That is a pillar of liberalism, a pillar of the entertainment world. The world's oldest adolescent, Taylor Swift, has now endorsed Mala. Your thoughts?
Yeah. First of all, this was not a surprise. In fact, the
Shocking.
the only surprise was the timing, because most people expected her to endorse Kamala before the DNC. So what took her so long, God only knows. The idea that a Taylor Swift endorsement is going to change anybody's mind is ludicrous. The only people that care what Taylor Swift has to say are the diehard Swifties, and they were voting for Kamala anyway. So, that's basically irrelevant. Now, you've seen little headlines popping up. Trump made a comment that Taylor Swift's endorsement is going to be to her detriment. People, of course, are going, oh, Trump is threatening Taylor Swift. It's like, no, Trump was not threatening Taylor Swift. Trump was referring to the fact that there has been fairly swift conservative backlash against companies such as Target, Bud Light, Disney, that we've seen over and over again. And he is speculating that these folks will stop supporting Taylor Swift, stop buying tickets to her concerts. I actually don't think there's going to be any such backlash, because I don't think that audience was buying her tickets in the first place.
Okay, and her audience are juvenile girls
Right.
that don't vote anyway. And my advice to Taylor, Miss Swift, is that She needs to start growing up, okay, and stop worrying about breakups and other high school girl issues and just live her life. How do you like that?
Well, I'm going to disagree with you strictly from a business sense. That is Taylor Swift's audience. That is who she, you know, her who buys her albums and goes to her concerts. So yeah, she's not growing up because her target market doesn't want her to. If she grows up, she loses her audience. So from a business point of view, there's a strong reason she doesn't grow up. But
I would have to.
she also needs to face the fact that because of that image, as far as any serious issues go, she's irrelevant.
I would agree with that 100%, but I also will push back on.
Yes, yes. You when you get to be 40 and you're still singing about Johnny broke up with me, you do start to get into the sphere of ridiculousness.
Well, again, Taylor Swift, the only thing amazing about Taylor Swift is that her career has lasted as long as it has. She's not a classic musician. She's not somebody that 40 years from now, people are still going to be clamoring to go to her concerts. I mean, you take a look at, I use very frequently Billy Joel as an example. Billy Joel has sold out 100 consecutive monthly concerts at Madison Square Garden. He hasn't put out a new album in 25, 30 years, and he's still selling out concerts. And now his music has actually generated him a new generation of fans. That's not going to happen with Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift, as she ages, her career is simply going to end.
Well, again, I still stand by what I'm saying. I think it gets you beyond border on ridiculousness when you're 40, and which she is not yet. I'm saying in another 5 years, and you're still talking about breakups and everything. It loses all sense of reality. But that's not my problem because she's a billionaire, so I should be so lucky. But one thing, so I don't care about her career or her in any way. But what I do care about is the Ukrainian situation. When you have Uncle Joe and genius Miss Harris at the helm, it's quickly escalating into dangerous territory. Not that it already wasn't. There's no negotiations. There's no efforts to bring this to a close. Uh, Very scary. Most people are worried more about Taylor Swift than about nuclear annihilation. They need to get their priorities straight, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, this has already escalated. We saw Ukraine finally actually striking back within Russian territory. So there was a massive drone strike on Moscow just yesterday. But what worries me more is what's going on behind the scenes. Anthony Blinken confirmed yesterday that Iran is supplying Russia with weapons. Well, guess where Iran is getting the money for those weapons? It's Joe Biden pulling back the sanctions. So we are sending money and weapons to Ukraine and indirectly funding Iran to provide Russia with weapons. We've also seen weapons coming from North Korea. So this is literally becoming the new axis. It is Iran, Russia, North Korea, and China. And the more that these four countries work together, the less safe the rest of the world is.
But you still get to the original point, the initial point. You have no one in charge in a very dangerous time.
Yes.
That should make your head spin.
Well, literally, since pulling out of the election, Joe Biden has been on vacation for 6 weeks.
I don't think he even gives a shit. How do you like that?
Kamala Harris has been on the campaign trail. She returned to the White House once for a meeting, And today was called back so she could attend 9/11 ceremonies. But she hasn't been doing her job. She's been on the campaign trail.
Well,
Biden
thank God
hasn't.
she's not.
Right.
Thank
Biden
God, please.
hasn't been doing his job. He's been on vacation. So who is in command? And the problem is, whoever it is has probably been in command since 2021 because we know Biden was mentally unfit.
100%. Very scary times. I think in conclusion, the debate was won by Harris, but not enough to move the needle. Correct, Dr. Lopkin?
Yes, that's pretty much it. Harris did win the debate, but there was not enough meat in that debate to shift anybody's minds. It solidified both bases. I think if you were a Trump supporter, you're a stronger Trump supporter. If you were a Harris supporter, you're a stronger Harris supporter, but it didn't flip any independents.
Okay, last question though. How about the media spin? Will that have an impact? Like MSNBC is going to say it's the greatest thing since Winston Churchill's address to the joint session of Congress.
I think at this point, the media has become almost irrelevant. They are speaking to, they're preaching to the choir. So whatever MSNBC and and CNN say, these folks weren't going to vote for Trump anyway. Whatever Fox, says, or Newsmax, those folks were Trump supporters. Although Fox, I think at this point has a little more influence because they actually have a very large Democratic viewership. But I don't think the media spin is going to make any difference. I was watching on social media people's reactions, and quite frankly, the reactions were almost predictable. The folks that were cheering on Harris were folks that I already knew were voting for Harris. The folks that were cheering on Trump's answers, I knew they were already voting for Trump. So you've got a very small group of people that are going to swing this election. And so far, neither the media nor that debate is having any effect on them. I think what probably is having a larger effect is RFK Jr. telling his followers to vote for Trump and Tulsi Gabbard coming out and supporting Trump. I think those are probably having more effect than the debate or certainly Taylor Swift.
I agree on all of that, Dr. Lobkin. And for our listeners, they can basically voice their opinions, can't they, Dr. Lobkin?
Yes. What did you think of the debate? Do you agree that Kamala won? Do you think, Kamala lied too much? Do you think Trump lied too much? Let us know what
Do you think
your
it's swaying? Do you think it can sway the election?
right.
That's
Do you
another
think
thing.
either one is going to sway the election? Let us know what you're thinking. You can go to xvadio.com/connect. You can also go to the Carnivore Radio Facebook page, messages there. We want to hear from you. And of course, you can listen to every episode of Carnivore Radio at xvadio.com, the Carnivore Radio website, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin, and I will see you next week.
We'll see you then.